What up, everybody? Thanks for checking in the Brown Mamba podcast. For those of you who don't know, my name is Jackson, and this is the Brown Mamba 2016-17 NBA Preview Podcast. So this is going to be a series of 3 podcasts where I preview the upcoming NBA season and how I think each team will do. I'm going to have one for the East, one for the West, and one where I go over who I think is going to win the title, the end of season awards, and some other miscellaneous things. But before I get started, I want to break down real quick how I'm going to be doing things. So I'm going to be going over a quick recap of how each team did last season with their record, how they did on offense and defense. I'm going to take a look at the offseason moves, who they added, lost, and drafted. And I'm also going to take a look at where Vegas has them as the over-under for their win total this upcoming season and whether I agree with it or not. Then we're going to take a look at each team's starting rotation, and then I'll go ahead and get into how I think each team will do. All right, so now let's take a look at how I think the West is going to do this year. So we're going to start things off in the West with the Dallas Mavericks, who finished last season with a record of 42-40. They ranked 11th on offense, 17th on defense, and in the offseason made a couple big moves. They added Harrison Barnes and Andrew Bogut from the Warriors, along with Quincy Acey and Seth Curry. But they also lost Chandler Parsons, David Lee, Ray Felton, Zaza, Jeremy Evans, and JaVale McGee, and they went on and drafted A.J. Hammonds. So if we take a look at the rotation for the Mavs this year, they're going to be running with Darren Williams still at the point, Wesley Matthews, who I think will have a better year than they had last year. Last season was his first year back from the Achilles injury, which is, it's just a devastating injury for anybody. And, he had a full off season to recover and, get back into his normal routine, and I think he'll do a lot better. Dirk still just being the ageless wonder, And yeah, I don't know how much quality basketball he has left. I mean, everyone was kind of counting him out last season, but he looked really good last season. He was even though he didn't put up as many core stats like points, rebounds, and stuff like that, his stats were very efficient, considering how high up there he is in age. And who knows if we'll start to see him decline this year? I mean, people have been saying it for the last couple of years, and kind of like the Spurs, I've learned not to really count out Dirk yet until I actually see it. And then, we got the 2 glaring changes in the starting lineup. We got Harrison Barnes and Andrew Bogut. Now, Andrew Bogut's going to bring a toughness and defense down low on both ends of the ball. Really, I mean, his specialty is defense, but, it's anytime he can get the ball and, clean up on the boards, get, some tip slams, a little catch a rebound, and every now and then, that's always icing on the cake with him. But, Harrison Barnes, he was pretty much brought in to replace Chandler Parsons. He's not going to shoot as well as Chandler Parsons did, but he can shoot the ball a little too, but he's also going to bring in a lot more strength and a little bit more to his game down low, as opposed to, from the 3. He's still pretty good in the corners, but again, not as good as Chandler Parsons was, but nonetheless, he's still a pretty good addition to the team. I don't know if he deserved the huge contract he got. I mean, anytime a team as good as the Warriors is willing to let a guy go, with no hesitation, it's kind of a little bit of a red flag. But, he's still a talented player, and I think he'll do all right this season. And I really like Powell off the bench. He's a really long, athletic, kind of a hybrid 3-4 guy. You can throw him in, if they want to go small, he can play big, and if they want to go big, he can play the smallest position. But yeah, he's a really athletic, can jump out the gym, and just his a world of potential for him. And I think, under the the great coaching behind the mind of Rick Carlisle, aka Jim Carrey, I think he can really progress this season and really help out the team a lot. And then also off the bench, he's still got these usual kind of guys like J.J. Barea, Devin Harris. Seth Curry, he'll be pretty good too, replacing Ray Felton, and. Yeah, like I said, I don't think they're going to be, set the whole West on fire, but I do think that, the over-under that they have of about 39.5 games is about right. They're going to be, I have a feeling they're still going to be about the same as they were last season. Not too high, not too low. It's not the most talented roster in the league, but, anytime you got, a whiz for a coach like Rick Carlisle, you got a chance. And I like them to be, lower seed in the playoffs, if they make the playoffs, just because, the West is so stacked. But yeah, I think they'll just do about the same as they did last season. All right, now moving on, we got the Denver Nuggets up next, who finished last season with a record of 33-49. They were like the top of the bad teams in the West. They finished with ranked 19th on offense and 23rd on defense. Not a very active offseason for the Nuggets. They didn't add anybody. And they only lost DJ Augustine and Jeffrey Laverne. But they did have a pretty good draft. They drafted Jamal Murray and Juan Hernan Gomez, as well as Malik Beasley and Peter Corneli. I think I said that correctly. So if we take a look at the starting rotation, year 2 for Manu Mudiay, he looked he looked pretty rough last season, pretty raw. A lot of turnovers, but at the same time, a lot of potential. What can you expect when he's a rookie point guard? You give him the ball expect and ask him to run the offense as early as they did with him. He's going to make some mistakes, but rather him work them out early than work them out later on. And I think he's going to definitely get better in year two. I don't know how much better though. Just depends on the rest of the team. Which will include Will Barton, who I believe is going to be moving in the starting rotation now after being pretty good off the bench. He was a lot of people thought he should have been the sixth man of the year last season. Myself included, kinda to an extent, just because I didn't really feel like anyone else really deserved it more than he did. But that's not taken away from a pretty good season that he had. And at the three, you're gonna have Gallinari, who hopefully he can stay healthy. And when he's healthy, we all know what he can do. And speaking of being healthy, Wilson Chandler's back too. He's been banged up the last couple seasons, but I guess this season, I guess coming into the season, he's looking pretty good. He's feeling good, so hopefully they can expect a full season out of him. And I think that the fact that they're having a lot more guys coming back healthy is leading to them having the projected over-under of 36.5, which is a few games better than they did last season. Injuries have hurt this team a lot in the past, and they're looking about as healthy as they can be, because they're getting Nurkic back too, who's gonna interchange at the 4 at the 5 with Jokic, who both just a couple of European bangers, man. I'm telling you, Jokic a little bit more so on offense, but Nurkic, man, he is a freaking definitely a freaking hassle down low for a lot of guys, and trust me, he's not afraid to mix it up with some guys. And then, of course, you got Kenneth Faried, who was in some trade talks last season, potentially. I guess he's got some maybe some chemistry issues with the team. Who knows? But we'll have to see how it goes with whether or not he's on the team by the end of the season. A world of talent with him, really, just extremely athletic. And everyone knows he's a high flyer, skying for alley-oops, dunks, crazy rebounds, stuff like that. But a little undersized, but still, he can be effective for a team, a potential Western Conference contender too. So be on the lookout for that. And then off the bench, like I said, along with Chandler and Jokic, you got Jameer Nelson back, Darrell Arthur, and look for them to throw Jamal Murray in the mix too. Just throwing him right into the fire, just like they did Emmanuel Mudiay. They're not afraid to play young players, as we saw with what they did with Mudiay last year. So expect Jamal Murray to get some big minutes early and often. But with all the upside, that even though they do look a lot healthier, I just don't expect them. They just it's just the West is just too good, and when you have a conference that's stacked with so many good teams, there's other teams that have to lose, and I just think that Denver's one of those teams. They might get close. There's a lot of teams that can fight for that 8 seed, and I think that they're maybe one of them. But at the end of the day, I just think that they might be on the outside looking in. All right, and now here we have them, the Golden State Warriors. The record-setting 73-9 season, best regular season record of all time. First in the Western Conference, as we all know, they lost. They blew the 3-1 lead to in the finals to the Cavs, but didn't take away from a great season they had. They were ranked first on offense and fifth on defense. Just all-around great team. And as everyone knows, they added KD. And along with KD, they added David West, Zaza, and JaVale McGee, a.k.a. Tragic Bronson. And they lost Harrison Barnes, Andrew Bogut, Leandro Barbosa, Festus Ezeli, Maurice Spates, and Brandon Rush, all guys that they were just, willing to let go. And they drafted Damian Jones and Patrick McCaw. Now, before I get into my full preview of the Warriors, I just want to say a quick thing about the whole KD thing. I completely understand to the Warriors. This and that. But if you look at if you look at the whole scope, not just basketball-wise, even though it does make a ton of sense basketball-wise, where great team, good head coach, good team chemistry, he fits right in, as you can tell already from the preseason. He looks like he's not even breaking a sweat out there. He's just effortless. They run a style that he likes, up and down, a lot of shooting, everything fits right into his game. They can use him in big lineups, they can use him in small lineups, whatever. It's going to be, the possibilities are endless with him in that lineup, with the KD on this team now. Along with it making basketball sense, it also just makes sense for him personally. the Bay Area is just so many opportunities to grow his brand and his everything outside of basketball, whether it's if he wants to do some investing in some kind of business or startup or something like that, whether he wants to branch out on his own thing and do his own little brand or something like that. The possibilities are endless up there. But with all that being said, and all the sense in the world that it makes, still every time I see KD in a Warriors jersey, I just shake my head. I don't know. It's just kind of and I know I'm not alone in this feeling where you just look at it and you just kind of have to just shake your head, like, because that's all you can do. Like I said, it makes the most sense in so many ways for him to be on the Warriors, but at the same time, you just kind of go, like, really? And I just had to get that out there just because I'm rooting for him. I like KD. But every time I see him out there still, I'm just going to say, really? And that feeling will never go away. No matter what he does, even if he wins the MVP, if he wins the finals MVP, if he sets all kinds of records, it's just still just going to kind of make this face and just go, like, really? So yeah, speaking of KD and this team, take a look at this rotation. You still got Steph, Clay, Draymond, Iggy, Sean Livingston, but then, come on, just adding KD to the mix, good luck trying to stop that. And then, Zaza, he's, not the most talented, not the, biggest name, but, he's definitely there. He knows what his job on the team. And he's essentially just doing, what Andrew Bogut did last year. The guy who's just going to grab rebounds, set some screens, and, play hard defense, and just let the scoring come from everywhere else. They got other guys coming in too, like David West, Anderson Varejao, Ian Clark McAdoo, but whatever. It's just, we all know who's gonna put up all the points for these Warriors. So if you take a look at the over/under, Vegas has them at 66.5, which means that if you take the over, that means you think that the Warriors will win at least 67 games. Correct? So at first you hear that number and you're like, oh, that's crazy. The 73-9 thing is just a once in a lifetime kind of deal. But when you really think about it, if you do the math, to take the under, that means that, they'll say that they'll only win 66 games. So if that's the case, you have to find 16 different instances where this Warriors team, with Steph, Clay, KD, Draymond, Iggy, and the rest of the gang, loses 16 games. Can you think of that? Led by Steve Kerr? Can you think of 16 different instances where this team loses? And when you think about it like that, it's pretty damn hard. And it's like, maybe they won't do the 73-9, maybe they won't go 74-8, but you know what? They're going to be pretty damn close. And I'm looking for them to, just continue to run through the West, just like they did last season. And, eventually I think they can work their way all the way back to the finals. I just don't know who can stop them, really, in a 7-game series 3 different times. So, just look for more of just more continued dominance from the Golden State Warriors. All right, and moving on to the Houston Rockets, who were, in my opinion, not just the biggest disappointment in the Western Conference, but the biggest disappointment in the entire NBA. They had aspirations of going to the Western Conference Finals, and even potential to go to the actual finals, but that definitely wasn't the case. They finished 41-41. They still ranked high on offense at 7th, but if you take a look at that defense, 22nd in defense. In the offseason, they added Ryan Anderson and Eric Gordon, Nene, Tyler Ennis, and Pablo Prigioni, but they lost a couple big names, Dwight Howard, Jason Terry, Terrence Jones, and Michael Beasley. And then they also drafted Chinanu Onuaku, a.k.a. the guy who shoots granny style, and they also drafted Zhu Qi. And another thing to know who they added Mike D'Antoni to this offense. I'll take a look at this lineup with James Harden, Trevor Ariza, Ryan Anderson, Eric Gordon, Nene, Corey Brewer, and look at that lineup and think about how many points that they're going to score a game with Mike D'Antoni as their head coach. Now, whatever number you have in your head, it's probably going to be about 10 or 15 points more. It should be a fun watch. I don't know if they'll be, maybe fun's not the right word, maybe interesting for sure, because there are two sides of basketball. There's offense and then there's defense. Sure, they might set all kinds of records and score 100 and average 130 points a game on offense, but you got to make sure that the defense doesn't give up 131 points, or else what's the point of scoring 130 points? So despite the fact that Patrick Beverley is going to be missing some time in the early part of the season due to injury, James Harden is going to be predominantly the ball handler or act as the point guard, which he kind of already did. He really took care of ball handling duties anyway. But like I said, under Mike D'Antoni, man, as talented as James Harden already is, I mean, look out, he could set records I think, and he in my opinion, he's the early favorite to win the scoring title this year. I mean, we already know how good he is, before Mike D'Antoni with other great offensive coaches like Kevin McHale. But man, the sky is the limit with this. And like I said, you got other just offensive-minded guys like Ryan Anderson and Eric Gordon and Nene, who right away can just have an impact offensively for this team. But yeah, it's just like I said, just how will his defense hold up? Everyone's known how poor the Rockets have been as a whole on defense, even before D'Antoni got there. So it's like, how much worse can they be with D'Antoni? But they're going with the whole philosophy that their best defense is a good offense. So Vegas has them at 44 wins. I kind of like them around that same area too, hovering around where they were. I think they might even do a little bit better. I think that they'll just have the pace of play will be so out of control that they might wear some teams out and pull some wins out just by sheer cardio and sheer endurance. But yeah, I like them, about where they were, maybe a little bit better. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. I think maybe a little bit better now that Dwight Howard's gone, and he was essentially kind of a black hole on offense for them. But yeah, I mean, in the end, as interesting as this team looks, I think they'll be about on the same, maybe a little bit better. All right, now we're moving on to the Los Angeles Clippers, who finished last season 53-29. They ranked 8th on offense, 6th in defense, top 10 in both categories, which is really good. But again, Doc Rivers being Doc Rivers, adding more players who are past their prime, who he coached against about 5-6 years ago. And Allen Anderson, Brandon Bass, Raymond Felton, and Mo Spates. And then they also had Xavier Mumford. And then they lost Jeff Green, Cole Aldrich, Pablo Prigioni, CJ Wilcox, and Jeff Ayers, while drafting Bryce Johnson, David Michino, and I'm not making his name up. His name is really Diamond Stone. Now here we come to the first big disagreement I have with Vegas. They have them only winning 45 games, which is a big step down from where they were last season, and especially considering the fact that everyone's going to be healthy again. If we take a look at their starting roster, Chris Paul got hurt at the end of the season. Blake Griffin had his whole incident where punched out the equipment manager, whatever the guy was, and broke his hand, and then also hurt his leg, which wasn't good. And then two of their top players and two of the top 20 players in the league definitely going to hurt their team, but they're back, they're healthy, and they should be ready to go. And I just don't know why Vegas has them ranked I just don't know why Vegas has their under so low. Chris Paul is still Chris Paul. Even though I'm not that big of a fan of his, I do respect his game, and I do understand that he is a great player, a floor general, a natural-born leader who, can will this team to try to win. JJ Redick's still going to be able to do JJ Redick things, moving around screens, catch and shoots and stuff like that. And then you got Blake and DeAndre down low. Blake said he feels really good this offseason, and he's looking to, have a great bounce-back season after last year's, disappointing injury-ridden season. And, hopefully, DeAndre Jordan, very controversial first team All-NBA pick, but now he's got that X in his chest, and he's got to prove that he's a first team All-NBA center, and try to prove a lot of people wrong, myself included. But the core four are really great for the Clippers, and it's just they just couldn't find they still can't find that fifth guy to just really solidify the team and glue it together to make them just truly great. Wesley Johnson, they thought he was the guy, but he just kept bouncing around the league because for a reason, he's got the body for the right fit to be, the typical 3-and-D type player that you have out in the wing, but he just can't get it done. Everyone knows it's going to be Paul Pierce's last season too, and he's essentially, they want him to be that 3-and-D type guy, but I mean, come on. Paul Pierce is almost 40. Like, how much can you expect to get from him? As silly as this kind of sounds, I do like the addition of Raymond Felton and Maurice Spates. The combination of Austin Rivers and Ray Felton coming in off the bench as in your backcourt, initially sounds kind of silly, but I mean, if you really think about it, Raymond Felton, was the first guy to have a triple-double last season, and he actually, if you look at his numbers, didn't do so bad. And neither did Austin Rivers. Everyone does the whole nepotism, you only play because your dad's the coach kind of thing, but He proved himself in that last game in the playoffs, so that he's got some toughness, and he just really wants to win. And so he definitely earned some respect from me, and I know a lot of other Clipper fans too. And also with Mo Buckets, he's Mo Buckets. I don't know about the contract they gave him, but he is Mo Buckets, and that's what he does. He'll get you some buckets off the bench. And then, come on. Do I have to say anything about Jay Cross? You know what you're going to get with Jay Cross, reigning Sixth Man of the Year. He's still going to do his thing. So, yeah, I just don't know why the Clippers are, or I just don't know why Vegas has them ranked so low, or I don't know why Vegas has their over-under so low. I think they'll be about the same, the top, one of the top teams in the West. I don't know if they're going to be able to get that 1 seed, but look for them definitely to be in the mix for 2, 3, or 4, definitely this coming year in the West. All right, and now we have the Los Angeles Lakers finishing dead last in the Western Conference with a record of 17-65. Absolutely horrible. They were literally the bottom of the barrel in offense and defense. 29th on offense, 30th on defense. And a pretty busy offseason for them. They added Luol Deng, Timofey Mozgov, Yi, Jose Calderon, and Thomas Robinson. And then they lost Brandon Bass, Roy Hibbert, Ryan Kelly, Robert Sacre, and we also lost the legend Kobe Bryant to retirement. It's the end of an era, not just for the Lakers, but for the NBA as a whole. He kind of was one of the last pieces of an era that's no longer around. And with him retiring along with Duncan and Garnett, it's kind of the end of the era that I grew up with watching basketball. But sad to see him go, but it's time to move on. And deep down, low-key, about almost every Laker fan won't want to admit it yet that they're ready to move on from Kobe. But once you take a look at the roster and how it's supposed to, and how I think it'll pan out, I'm pretty sure we're going to be ready to move on. And they also drafted Brandon Ingram and Ivica Zubac, who are going to be part of that reason why I think people will be happy and ready to move on. Because if we take a look at the starting rotation, everyone get ready. For those of you who aren't Laker fans and only know about D'Angelo Russell from the whole Nick Young thing and stuff like that, get ready, because this is the year of D'Angelo Russell, in my opinion. I think he's going to win Most Improved Player. He is extremely talented. I couldn't really figure out how to explain his game because Byron Scott wanted him to be such a traditional point guard. It's like, okay, clearly he's not the prototypical point guard like a Chris Paul or a Darren Williams or someone like that. The best way I explained him was he's a natural scorer who just happens to be able to pass the ball really well and handle the ball really well. And then I heard somewhere, I can't remember who said it, and shout out to you who said it. Sorry for stealing this from you, but someone said he's the point guard version of James Harden. Now, I know James Harden's going to be playing point guard this year for the Rockets, but if you really know what that means, and you know what that means, he's just got that natural ability to scan the floor, see what's the best available option, and whether it's him scoring, him passing, him making the pass that leads to the next pass, or whatever, he's there. I think he's gonna break out this year, especially under the coaching of new head coach Luke Walton, who just got done with another point guard who can score, who's a natural born scorer, who just happens to be able to pass the ball really well, in Steph Curry. So yeah, like I said, I can't give enough praise for how well I think D'Angelo Russell is gonna do this year. And when you watch him play, he just looks like a natural leader. Even last season when Byron Scott was just trying to purposely trying to bring him down, he didn't let it get to him. He just went out there with a chip on his shoulder. And even when Kobe was out there trying to dominate games, D'Angelo didn't take no shit from nobody, and just looked so confident, so prepared, and really was really impressive last season, especially towards the end. And I look for him to be even more impressive this season. But it's not just Russell this season. They also have Jordan Clarkson. I'm not sure if he's going to start. I have him starting right now, but I think Lou Williams is actually going to be the starter initially, and then they'll bring Jordan Clarkson off the bench. But they'll for sure rotate. And also, the same thing with Luol Deng. He's going to be the starter right away just for his the sheer fact that he's a veteran. He's been around the block. He knows what to do. And but look for Brandon Ingram to be eventually mix it in with a few starts, maybe towards the end of the season too, depending on how well he plays. And then you got Julius Randle and Timofey Mozgov rounding out the front court. Julius, again, another instance where Julius Randle is a starter, but don't be surprised if Larry Nance Jr. gets a lot of minutes too, and they split a lot of time. Julius Randle is extremely talented. The best way I can explain his game too is he's just like controlled chaos, where when you watch him, he just looks like he's all over the place, really. But as soon as he gets to the rim, it's just a really pretty layup or a really pretty turnaround or something like that. I know he needs to work on his jump shot, but I think he's working on it a little bit. But With Luke as the head coach, there's a lot of rumblings that they want him to essentially kind of have a similar role to how Draymond was, where he's the little bit undersized power forward who's extremely athletic, and also going to have him bringing the ball up the court, and essentially kind of run the offense on some plays. That's going to take a lot of work. He's still pretty green handling the ball, but it's good to just get him practice now, let him feel it out. He did a lot of it in the preseason. There were some turnovers, but like I said, he's a little green, and it's good to have him work it out in the preseason rather than in the regular season where it can actually hurt them. But then, looking at the bench, Nick Young, who would have thought that Nick Young would, look as well as he's looked in this preseason? A lot of distractions, like I mentioned at the end of the season last year. Didn't really play as well, didn't shoot the ball as well. But, this season he looks more focused. He's losing the crazy hair and the crazy antics and stuff and just getting back to what he knows best, and that's hooping. And I'm also excited for Zubac, the rookie center. Look for him to mix it in a lot, too, as a backup and get some sharing minutes with Mozgov. It's scary how much he looks like Marc Gasol. He's about the same height. They look the same. They run the same. They move the same. When he posts up, they have a similar style game. Obviously not as refined and as advanced as Marc Gasol, but the comparisons are definitely there, and I'm very excited to see where this team goes. Now, Vegas has her over-under at 25.5 games, which is, still bad, but better than it was last season. Don't be surprised if they break 30. Now, that's, still not great, but, considering how they were last season, it's leaps and bounds better than what anyone thought. Like I said, I don't think they'll be great right away, but, they're still a couple years away, I think, but, this is a very exciting year for the Lakers. With Kobe being gone, it's the beginning of a new era, a lot of young, talented players to build around going forward. And like I said, even though this team may not be the greatest team in the West, I'm really, really excited to see how they progress this season. Now we're going into the grindhouse with the Memphis Grizzlies. Last season, they were about average. They finished 42-40. They ranked 17th on offense, 20th on defense. And then in the offseason, they added Chandler Parsons, James Ennis, Tony Roden, and Troy Daniels. And they lost Lance Stevenson, Matt Barnes, Birdman, Jordan Farmer, and Xavier Munford. And then they drafted Wayne Baldwin IV, Deontay Davis, Andrew Harrison, Rade Zagarak, and Wang Zaylin. Now, Vegas has their win over-under at 43.5, which means that they're going to be about the same as they were last season. Now, I don't disagree with this, but I also don't totally agree with this either. The West is looking a lot better this season, and I also said this in the East. When other teams are getting better, that means that other teams have to suffer. And the Grizzlies, if you look at their roster, they're healthy, but they didn't really get much better. Chandler Parsons kind of, but who knows with his health issues. I think they're in a similar situation as the Hornets, where they didn't really better themselves, and they're kind of sticking to the same situation that they've had, that they've been doing. And so don't rule out the possibility of them taking a slight step back here. I'm saying I don't like going against the Grizzlies like this, because I do like the Grizzlies. I love Zebo and Marc Gasol. I also like Tony Allen, first team all defense. But like I said, everyone on this team is 1 year older, and that's not really ever a good sign. Mike Conley has now the biggest contract ever in NBA history, and that might not sit too pretty with a lot of these other guys. Honestly, nothing against Mike Conley, but if you just think about that for a second, Mike Conley currently has the largest contract in NBA history. The one change they did make is they brought in David Fizdale as the head coach. If you're not quite sure who David Fizdale is, he's the light-skinned guy that's always on the sidelines for the Miami Heat game. That's kind of what a lot of people know him as. I don't really know much about him, but I do know he's a really good assistant coach, and I think he can, just kind of pick up where Dave Yeager left off and just, keep the ship going. Like I said, I don't think they got worse per se by the moves they made, but they didn't get better. And anytime you don't get better, that's usually not good. I'd like to be proved wrong. Like I said, I do like the Grizzlies as a whole, and I will gladly eat my words if they do well and get a higher seed in the West. And I think they'll be right around the 7, 6, 5 area, maybe even as low as 8. It just depends on how everyone else does. But they'll for sure make the playoffs, but I just don't expect them to go very far. All right, moving on next to the Minnesota Timberwolves, aka the internet's favorite team. Yeah, last year they finished with a record of 29-53, ranked 12th on offense, but almost at the bottom at 28th on defense. But none of that matters because it's a new era for the T-Wolves. Starting off with who they added and lost. They added Cole Aldrich, Jordan Hill, and Brandon Rush. Again, back to the end of an era thing. They lost Kevin Garnett, and they also lost Greg Smith and John Roods. Sorry if I said it wrong. And they drafted Chris Dunn. So Vegas has them winning 41 games, which I do not disagree with at all. Because if we look at this roster, I mean, this is a really, really talented young team. There's only one name that truly matters right now, and that's Karl Anthony Towns. As much as I was gassing D'Angelo Russell this year, I can't speak any higher to how well I think Karl Anthony Towns is going to play this year. The sky truly is the limit with Karl Anthony Towns. I mean, he is literally everything that is good about the young NBA. He is young, he's talented, but he's still somewhat refined and just so skilled. And just every time you see him, he just blows you away. Not just on offense, but on defense too. He can obviously bang down low, and he can also step out and get in front of. If you didn't see it, look for the little Vine clip or whatever of Karl Anthony Towns getting switched onto Steph Curry and actually staying in front of Steph Curry, making him forcing Steph to take a bad shot. It's one of the craziest things you'll see all season. But yeah, I mean, just Karl Anthony Towns is just honestly he's Anthony Davis and Giannis fused together, and then even a little bit better than that, in my opinion. Like I said, the sky's the limit with him, and he's also one of my sleeper dark horse picks for MVP this year, just throwing that out there. But it's not just the big cat that I'm excited about, it's the rest of the young core, starting with Andrew Wiggins and Zach LaVine, who, showed out last season and really showing the rest of the NBA, that they're for real. Wiggins was a little injured throughout the season last year and towards the end of the season before that, but hopefully he can stay healthy this coming season. And Zach LaVine impressed everyone in the dunk contest, but also towards the second half of the season proved that he's more than just the flash and the dash and the high flying dunker. He's actually got some game. And I like Gorgie Dieng too. He knows his role. He's going to be out there to grab rebounds, set picks, play some good hard defense, and just let the rest of the guys do the scoring for him. And if you take a look at the bench, if Chris Dunn's there and he's poised to be Ricky Rubio's replacement, not quite sure yet. It all depends on if Ricky Rubio asks to be traded, which I've heard some rumblings about. But he's definitely got a world of talent and can fit right into just this young, talented, skilled core for the T-Wolves. They still got Shabazz Muhammad. They added Cole Aldridge, who in my opinion, really helped the Clippers out a lot, in Blake's absence last season. And I think he can do the same for them off the bench. Another huge move for the T-Wolves was getting Tibbs as their head coach. He's going to bring a winning pedigree. Everyone knows how successful he was with the Bulls, and most importantly for him, it starts with defense. And there's a lot of potential for great defensive players on this team, starting with Cat and Wiggins, and going all the way down to Ricky Rubio, LaVine, and Dieng. I can't even really put into words how valuable I think that Tibbs will be to this young T-Wolves team. He's full of so much wisdom, so much knowledge of the game, and he just knows how to win. And having such a successful and such a great head coach can only be great for these young players. And they are my big sleeper for making it into the playoffs, squeaking into maybe the 8th seed and maybe even higher. Who knows how well they play? They have all the talent in the world, and anytime you got a coach like Coach Tibbs, you just can't count them out. All right, now moving on to the New Orleans Pelicans, who finished last season with a record of 30-52. They finished 18th on offense, 27th on defense, and they added Solomon Hill, Terrence Jones, Lance Stevenson, Etuan Moore, Langston Galloway, Chris Copeland, and Robert Sacre, and they lost Ryan Anderson, Eric Gordon, James Ennis, and Luke Babbitt. They drafted Buddy Hield and Czech Dallo. Another team that was pretty underwhelming in the West last year. They had high expectations, especially with a guy like AD, but just couldn't quite get it together. I personally think as the head coach, Alvin Gentry hasn't had a very good track record as a head coach on his own. The only time he kind of had success was with Steve Nash, and obviously he doesn't have Steve Nash anymore. So, but let's take a look at who he does have. As you can see, I have asterisks next to the name. Drew Holiday is going to miss whoever knows how long. It's a real terrible situation what's going on with him, and prayers up to him and his family. Hoping that for the best with everything going forward, and basketball is pretty important to all of us, but at the same time, we have to be reminded that basketball isn't the only thing, and but we do hope to see Drew Holiday out there on the court again soon, sooner rather than later. And then also Tyreek Evans, he's going to be out for a little bit at the beginning of the season. I believe he had a last-minute kind of knee surgery or knee operation, so don't expect him to be playing right away. They got Solomon Hill from the Pacers, who can go right into the three. I've always liked Solomon Hill. I think he just kind of got lost in the wash in the Pacers because obviously when you're behind a guy like Paul George, that can't tend to happen. So I think he can come in and contribute right away. And AD, man, so he has that high-grade ankle sprain. Not good. There was that, if you haven't seen it, there was that picture that was going around Twitter after the news of his ankle sprain. that showed all his different injuries that he's had in his short career so far, and they're pretty alarming. Some of them were just little like nicks and stuff like that, just to kind of exaggerate his injury proneness. But just the fact that he's had so many little things and missed so many games as a result, pretty alarming. Hopefully he can recover and just get back out on the floor, and hopefully not have any injuries hold him back this year, because everyone wants him to live up to the standards that he set. A couple of years ago, having one of the best, not just seasons as a young player in history, but just in history overall. Had a tremendous season a couple years ago, and we just hope that we can see him, live up to those expectations this season and for many seasons to come. But yeah, once after AD, it kind of stops there. Alexis Ajinça, whatever, he's up, serviceable guy. He knows his role as a defender and a rebounder and stuff. Etuan Moore showed some flashes last year with the Bulls, scoring the ball and stuff like that off the bench. And, he can step in and, do that same role. I think he's going to be starting for a little bit. Or if Etuan Moore, it's going to be their top pick this year, Buddy Hield. Now, I really like Buddy. He's just kind of got that, like he said, he's got that kind of, not quite there yet, but he's kind of got that Kobe gene in him, where he's just not afraid to shoot no matter what, because as like shoot or shoot, But yeah, he's kind of got that in him, where he's kind of wired that way, where he's just going to keep shooting no matter what, because that's what he believes in. He believes in himself, he believes in his game, he believes in his strengths, when that's shooting the ball from all over the place, putting it in the bucket. But yeah, other than that, they kind of have the same team too. Didn't really make any moves to get better, but if they don't get better, then you're technically getting worse. They still got Omer Asik, Bond Dexter, Galloway, G. I mean, they added Galloway, but they still got Alonzo G and Dante Cunningham. I'm just expecting more of the same. Even with a healthy AD, if you were to play a full season, I don't see him swinging. I don't see him influencing that many wins for them going forward. So look for more of the same. I got them on the outside looking in, not making the playoffs at all this year, and hopefully they can take a step forward, and maybe can continue to improve going forward. But as far as this season goes, it's just not going to be the year for them. And now on to the Oklahoma City Thunder. They finished 55-27 last year. They ranked second in offense, 18th in defense, and they added Victor Oladipo and Ersan Ilyasova, aka NBA James Franco. They added Ronnie Price and Jeffrey Laverne, but as everyone knows, they lost KD, and they also lost Serge Ibaka, Randy Foye, and Waiters Island. They also drafted Domantas Sabonis. Yes, that is Sabonis' son. And they also got Alex Abrines, Samaj Kristen, and Daniel Hamilton. Now, I know everyone's already beaten this narrative into the ground, how, will KD and Russ, what's going to go on with them postseason, yada, yada, blah, blah, blah. And, I want to look past all that, but, it has to be said, the fact that the Thunder lost KD is definitely going to hurt them. They got a talented player in Victor Oladipo. I'm sorry, you just can't place a guy like KD, and it obviously shows because Vegas has them losing 10 more games than they lost last season. And as we take a look at the starting rotation, Russell Westbrook is probably going to go off this season and just have monster numbers all season long, similar to what he did, a couple seasons ago when KD was out with the foot injury. But at the end of the day, look at the team's situation when that happened. They didn't even make the playoffs, I don't think, or they were at the 8th seed. But he was putting up a double almost every night. But they didn't really win. And not only do they not have KD in this situation, they don't have Serge Ibaka anymore either, who was like pivotal key in their their defense. Like I said, they added Victor Oladipo, who can also add some scoring and some defense, at the perimeter. And then Andre Roberson. People are going to say, oh yeah, this is his year, yada yada. He's a good defensive player, but he's a good defensive player because he was the third option on defense behind KD and Serge, and arguably the fourth behind Russ too. He could hide behind KD and guard the team's second best offensive threat. But, now that KD's gone, he's not the guard number ones, and I don't think he can stay. Nothing against Roberson, but would you trust him trying to guard some of the top wing players in the league? Like KD, the guy he's supposed to replace? Or Kawhi? Or Andrew Wiggins? And those are just guys that are in the West. That's not even counting the East they have to go up against, like LeBron, PG, guys like that. They're going to have the Stash Bros down low too with Cantor and Adams, but, I just keep having to say it's tough to replace a guy like KD. He helped out in the teams in so many other ways than just scoring, and I think it's really going to show this year when Russ puts up crazy stats again like he did a couple seasons ago, but it doesn't necessarily translate to wins. I still think they're going to do well. They're obviously going to make the playoffs. They're still one of the top teams in the West, but as far as dominating like they have, going deep in the playoffs, I don't know. It's going to be tough. And these are the kind of things that Russell Westbrook feeds on. He's an early favorite for MVP. A lot of people think he might be just based on sheer numbers, but, we've seen plenty of guys in the past put up tons of numbers. But if your team doesn't win, you're not going to get a lot of MVP votes. But yeah, look for this Thunder to be, still be a good team, just, not as great as they have been in the past. All right, and next up we got the Phoenix Suns, who finished 23-59 last season, second to last in the West. They were 28th on offense, 25th in defense, not very good, and I don't see them doing any better. They're actually my pick to be the bottom team in the West. They didn't make many moves this offseason. They only added Leandro Barbosa and Jared Dudley, two guys who are on their second stints with the team now, and they lost Chase Budinger, John Lure, Ronnie Price, and Mirza Teletovic. They drafted Dragan Bender, Marquise Chris, and Tyler Ulis. Vegas has them winning 29 games. I don't see that happening at all. They're going to have first-year coach Earl Watson. Enough said there. And then if you just take a look at their lineup, obviously the top guy on this team is Devin Booker, and they have to figure out a way to make it his team. But, it's going to be tough with all these different guards they have. Eric Bledsoe, extremely talented. We all know how gifted he is athletically, and it's not just an athletic freak. He is a great player. And then there's also Brandon Knight, T.J. Warren, Archie Goodwin, and Marquise Chris, and it's just crazy. They have to find a way to give the keys over to Booker because he was, if it wasn't going to be Cat as the Rookie of the Year last season, it definitely was going to go to Devin Booker, and he's just gonna, in my opinion, he's gonna light it up this season. If they can figure out a way to get him going, he is definitely going to put up some numbers. But if you look at the cast around him, pretty meh. PJ Tucker's out right now, but when he comes back, he's going to be, the defensive stopper guy and stuff like that. Jared Dudley is, Jared Dudley. He's a good pro, but starting four in the West, yeah, that's not going to get it done if you ask me. They still have Tyson Chandler, but he's just not getting any younger. He's still a great defensive presence down low and essentially an extra coach on the court. But like I said, he's not getting any younger, and Alex Len is kind of every game. It seems like he's looking more and more like not necessarily a bust because he wasn't that high of a pick, but he was an early pick from the draft. I don't know, a couple years ago. They have a lot of high hopes for Dragan Bender, Marquise Chris. I haven't seen enough of them yet to be able to give a full opinion on them, but this team is just not going to be good, and look for it to be a long season for the Phoenix Suns. All right, now moving on, we have the Portland Trailblazers, who finished with a record of 44-38. Another team, this time in the West, but still another team finishing 44-38. They were 6th in offense last season, 19th in defense, and they added Evan Turner, Festus Ezeli, and Shabazz Napier, while losing Gerald Henderson, Brian Roberts, and Cliff Alexander, and they only drafted one player in Jake Layman. Now, the Vegas has them at an over-under of 45.5, which is honestly right at about where I would have had them. I think they're going to be just about the same, even though they did add two big names in Evan Turner and Festus Ezeli. If you take a look at the rotation, they're not going to come in and be starters, but they will have an impact for the team, I believe, on the bench. Evan Turner more so than Festus Ezeli, who I don't think deserve that big of a contract. He's good at what he does, kind of, but it's still not that great in my opinion. But they still have Damian Lillard, who dang man, just is he gonna be this generation's Allen Iverson? Not talking about attitude-wise, I'm talking just strictly on the court, where he's just a tremendous offensive talent, can score the ball at will, do a whole lot of crazy things, really great player, but just, stuck on a weird team in weird situations where there's just guys in his era and his class who are just a little bit better than he is, and we'll have to wait and see. I'm rooting for Dame to be really successful, not just statistics wise, but career wise, whether it be winning rings or awards or stuff like that. But Yeah, they still have CJ McCollum, last year's most improved player. Look for him, look for Dame and CJ to continue to be a dominant backcourt. And Mo Harkless, what else can I mean? Mo Harkless, Alpha Camino, Mason Plumlee. I mean, they're just about average to slightly above average if you really want to be nice. And their bench too is essentially the same. And then like I mentioned, Evan Turner and Festus Ezeli on the bench. But the rest of their bench is pretty average at best, if you ask me. Myers Leonard does create some matchup problems when he stretches them out the floor. He hits those top of the key threes. Noah Vonleh, Ed Davis, essentially kind of the same player, energy guys off the bench. I like Alan Crabb more than the next guy. I know he got paid this offseason. They paid him a lot to stay, and that's going to show that he can be that off the bench guy. They'll probably pair him with Evan Turner off the bench to do some scoring for the team. But other than that, like they're looking to be the same as they were last year. They finished 5th in the West last season, and I think they're going to be more or less the same in that 4, 5, 6 range, and probably not going very deep in the playoffs. And like I said, it's pretty tough, especially with having a guy like Dame on the team. You really want to have a successful career, championship wise, and hopefully he can win at least one. But the way that this team is currently constructed, I just don't really see that happening anytime soon. All right, up next, we got the Sacramento Kings, who finished 33-49 last season. They ranked 16th on offense, 21st on defense, and they got pretty busy this offseason as well. They added Ty Lawson, Matt Barnes, Aaron Aflalo, Jordan Farmar, Garrett Temple, Anthony Tolliver, Lamar Patterson, and they lost Rajon Rondo, Quincy Acey, Marco Bellinelli, Seth Curry, Caron Butler, Eric Moreland, and Duje Dukan. And they drafted Georgios Papagiannis, Malachi Richardson, Skal Labissiere, and Isaiah Cousins. And speaking of Cousins, we're talking about the other Cousins on the team. I think this honestly might be Boogie's last season with the team. Vegas has him predicted to win the same amount of games, 33. And Boogie is. I know how people feel about Boogie. I know what people are saying about Boogie, and most of it is deserved. But DeMarcus Cousins is one of my favorite players, if not my favorite player in the league right now. I just love his game. Yeah, he does get a little crazy sometimes, but it most of the time it comes from a good place. He's just super competitive, and all he does to do is win. And he just he gets upset sometimes because wouldn't you be upset if you were with the Kings? He's gone through 2 different owners, I think 5 different head coaches. That one coach that he had and did like, Mike Malone, the team went and fired him because he was trying to do something that was obviously working, but it just wasn't what Vivek wanted for them. And I just think that this might be his last season. I don't know whether he gets traded or he asked to be traded or he just whatever happens, and you just hate to see someone as talented as him just be wasted in a shitty situation like Sacramento. And it's not just Boogie, so let's take a look at the starting rotation for the Kings this season. Darren Collinson's going to be the point guard, but he's going to miss the first few games for the domestic violence thing. Got to clean that stuff up, man. I can't keep having this stuff happen. It's like, seriously, like it's just like, come on. And aside from that, and they also got Aaron Aflalo to fill in at the 2. This also might be Rudy Gay's last season. I think he's asking. There's been some rumors that he's going to ask to be traded before the trade deadline this season. He just realizes how shitty it is too there, and just doesn't want to be a part of it anymore. And then they got Willie Cauley-Stein too. I really like him. He's essentially imagine Karl Anthony Towns, but just with no offense. He's the same kind of thing where he can guard big men down low, but he can also go out to the perimeter and guard some wings too. But offensively, he's nowhere close to great. But he does he does do well. He catches alley oops. He gets tipped slams, cleans up the boards and stuff like that. But yeah, and you take a look at the bench. That is not good. Ty Lawson, so much talent, but just so many distractions that he creates off the court. That just kind of just hinders his play. You can't be effective if you're being suspended all the time. Same thing with Matt Barnes. Who knows what's going to happen with him? He's always unpredictable too, but productive on the floor nonetheless. And then the rest of them, it's just kind of a bunch of average to below average players, like Macklemore, Kostas Koufos, Omri Cashman, Garrett Temple. like I said, it's a real shitty situation in Sacramento. So much dysfunction, so much, so many new faces on the team, in the front office and stuff like that, and I just don't see it getting any better. We can just expect more of the same from the Kings. I mean, they got a new arena, they got new logos, new jerseys and stuff like that, but just gonna see the same old stuff on the court from the Kings. Now, next up, we got the San Antonio Spurs, who finished 67-15, good for second in the Western Conference, if you can believe that. Any other year, they'd probably be more than likely to be first. But still a great team. They've ranked fifth in offense and first in defense. They added Pau Gasol, David Lee, and Dwayne Dedmon, while losing again the final piece of the last of an era in Tim Duncan. They lost Boris Diaw, David West, and Boban. And then they drafted Livio Jean-Charles, DeJounte Murray, Davis Bertans, and Ryan Richards. So like I said, they had a tremendous season last season, 67 wins. I think that was, one of the top 5 greatest regular seasons all time, I think. Maybe, for sure, top 10. It was only good for second in the West last year. Vegas has them at 57.5 wins. Tim Duncan does sway them a lot, or losing Tim Duncan does sway that a lot, but I still think they're a pretty talented team. And if we take a look at the starting rotation, they still have the same. They still got Tony and Manu. They are, like a lot of other players in the league, they're not getting any younger. But they're still effective, and they kept them for a reason. They got Danny Green, who still does what Danny Green does best, and it's catch and shoot, moving without the ball. And playing some pretty good defense. But the star of the team now and going forward, as we all know, is Kawhi Leonard, a.k.a. the Sharktopus. Shout out to Bill Simmons for that nickname. And it does fit him perfectly. He can definitely do it all. Reigning Defensive Player of the Year, and more than likely the favorite to win it again this season. He literally does it all. He can shoot, he can score, he can rebound, he can dish it out, plays defense, and he does them all very, very well. They're replacing Tim Duncan with Pau Gasol, and I saved LaMarcus Aldridge for last because, as talented as he is in the post on both offense and defense, there have been some rumblings that he might be on his way out before the season ends, and that's why and other people are saying that's also why they brought in Pau Gasol and David Lee was in case that happens. It's hard to replace a guy like LA. He's so talented, like I said, both on offense and defense down in the post. More so on offense. But he was, kind of an aloof guy when he was in Portland, and that's ultimately what led him to want to leave, Portland. And he has to have known. He had to have known what he was getting himself into going to the Spurs. Pop is the epitome of we not me, and if Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, Kawhi, Tim Duncan, they could be the number one guy, putting up all the numbers, putting up all the stats on any other team in the league. But on the Spurs, they buy into the whole team mentality, we not me, team first, sacrificing stats for the greater good of the team, and because at the end of the day, all that matters is getting W's. And apparently, LaMarcus isn't fully committed to that philosophy still, and he kind of wants to be more of like the center of attention, I guess. And it's really rubbing a lot of guys the wrong way. So don't be surprised if you hear that LaMarcus might be on his way out before the season's end. But in the meantime, he's still, like I said, very effective, especially on offense down in the post. I think, whether they keep him or not, they'll still be one of the top teams in the West. When you have Pop, you got a chance to be great, and that's saying something, especially in the West. I don't think they're going to be able to catch the Warriors for the top seed, but I do believe they'll be one of the top 5 teams at least in the West. Maybe even top 3 still, But yeah, don't count them out. You can always rely on Kawhi to play great, and the main thing is you just gotta wonder how much Tony, Manu, and even Powell have left in the tank. It's a lot of they're going to be 3 major pieces of this team, and I believe that the outcome of how the season goes is based on those 3 guys, and like I said, how much they got left in the tank, and how much they can produce for the team going forward. All right, and finally, we have the Utah Jazz, who finished with a record of 40-42, just missing the playoffs. They finished 14th on offense, 7th on defense. They added George Hill, Boris Diaw, Joe Johnson, and Henry Sims. They lost Trevor Booker and Tibor Pleiss, and they drafted Joel Bolomboy, Marcus Page, and Tyrone Wallace. and I'm just gonna come out and say it. I think the Jazz are the most overrated team coming into this season. They, a lot of people are predicting them to be similar. Similar to the Pistons in the East, a lot of teams are picking them to make a lot of noise this season in the Western Conference. But I just don't see it. Like they, if we just take a look at their team, I mean, all they really added was George Hill, and I mean, is he going to take you to the next level? They're not going to have Gordon Hayward for the first few weeks, maybe even a couple months, depending on how well his finger heals. But I mean, and I love Gordon Hayward. I'm a huge Gordon Hayward fan, and it sucks that he's out. But can Gordon Hayward be the best player on a potential top team in the Western Conference? Not the Eastern Conference here. We're talking about the Western Conference. Guy with teams like the Warriors, the Spurs, the Clippers. Like I said, I just look at this team. Just look at this roster. Like I said, they brought in George Hill, who's a veteran. Kind of this might be the last season for him to be a starter. You never know, especially with a guy like Dante Exum, who they're really high on, could potentially replace him. Rodney Hood had a coming out party last season for sure, to say the least, and he'll be we'll see if he can live up to the hype he created for himself last season. And Derek Favors, just a tremendous offensive talent. He can get it done on offense, but we'll have to wait and see how he does on defense too this year. But people would argue he doesn't really have to do as much on defense because they got Rudy Gobert, who in his first season 2 years ago, he kind of showed he had a lot of potential to be a DeAndre Jordan, Dwight Howard type, just a tall, long guy who can just jump out of the gym. And last year he really pissed off a lot of people, especially in fantasy, with how underwhelming he was. And then that's just the starting lineup, and then it just kind of goes downhill from there. Look at like I mentioned, they're really high on Dante Exum, but they got Joe Johnson, or the artist formerly known as Joe Johnson. Who knows how much he's got left in the tank. Boris Diaw too, and then they have Alec Burke, Shelvin Mack, Joe Ingles. Is that really a top team in the West? Like just think about it. I'm not sure if Vegas has him at 47.5. Just for the sheer fact that they want to just take people's money for the over. But if I was to bet on this team, I would for sure take the under. And at best they'll be the number 8 seed, and at the worst they're just back to where they were. Barely making scratching clawing to try to get 40 wins. The West is just too tough, and I just don't see them being considered one of the elite teams in the West, like a lot of so-called experts and stuff like that are saying that they will be. All right, so that's how I think the West is going to go this season. Pretty easy. You don't have to be an expert to know that the Warriors are the team to beat. Same usual teams are going to be at the top: the Spurs, Clippers. But it's a good, healthy mix. In the middle of there, you got good teams coming in like the Blazers. Teams like who can make a surprise, like the Jazz. A lot of people are thinking they're going to do well, and the T-Wolves too. Look out for them. But hopefully we'll see a lot more improving teams, like the Lakers and the Nuggets. But then we'll probably get a little more of the same too with the Suns and the Kings and stuff like that. But yeah, Warriors are the team to beat. Look for them to be in the finals again this season. Definitely a lot of interesting things to look for in the West this year. They're arguably the better conference out of the two, and they back it up. They talk the talk and they walk the walk. But I want to know what you think. Whether you agree with me or not, go ahead and give a comment down below. Let me know what you guys think about how I think the West is going to go this year. And like always, if you like what you heard, go ahead and subscribe, share, comment, like, all that good stuff. And if you want to get to know me a little bit more, or you want to ask me some more questions, stuff like that, go ahead and give me a follow and all the ads down in the link below. And make sure you also check out the other podcasts. I got the Eastern Conference preview and who I think is going to win the title and the other awards and stuff like that at the end of the season. And that's it for me in the West. And like always, peace. Oh yeah, and go Lakers.